The chains were too heavy for her arms. Lyra's wrists bled, skin worn raw by steel too cold and cruel for someone her size. Her feet couldn't touch the floor anymore. She dangled, trembling, suspended from a rusted iron arch bolted to the ceiling of Cell 9, Sublevel Theta. The pit. That's what the guards called this place. The pit because nothing left it whole. Not even memories. She whimpered barely. No sound above a whisper. Crying loud here only got you noticed. And being noticed meant hurt. Again. Worse. But she cried anyway. Because she wasn't just afraid. She wasn't just in pain. She was alone. Really truly alone. Until the chains hummed. And something answered. 30 hours ago. Commander Halleck of the Drek Syndicate stood tall on the observation deck of the slave-processing freighter Scornblade. His armor glimmered with gold plating, each link engraved with a species subjugated under Drek law. The newest one, still drying, was a small spiral glyph. The girl species. The Vari. Too peaceful to fight, too rare to ignore. Telepathic, soft-voiced, bonded in families so close it defied logic. Easy targets for the Syndicate's chain harvesters. 10,000 taken from their forest world without a shot fired. Halleck had kept one for himself. He didn't know her name. He didn't need to. She was small, quiet, and compliant. Until she wasn't. When the cry went out. The Vari don't scream like humans do. They don't have lungs built for howling. But what they do have, what no other species in the sector did, was resonance. An echo of thought. A harmonic pulse, unintentional but felt. In her pain and grief as the chain cut deeper, Lyra's mind did the only thing it could. It reached outward. A desperate, innocent signal. A mental voice screaming across space like a flare shot into heaven. Please. No one in the pit heard it. But somewhere, far beyond the rim, someone else did. Deathworlders don't pray. His name was Rourke. No title. No rank. No chain. Just Rourke. He stood on a barren moon with 2 suns, dragging a dead apex predator behind him with one arm. His armor was battered, repainted a dozen times, the kind mercenaries in myth used in stories told in terrified whispers. He wasn't part of a fleet. He was the fleet. A man born on Earth, a Class V Deathworld. The only known sentient species that evolved alongside extinction-level weather, predators, and history. No allies. No uniform. No mercy. But when he felt her cry, he moved. Instantly. Because humans don't need to be told who the bad guys are. They just know. Scornblade on lockdown. Back on the freighter, alarms screamed. Not because of an attack. Not yet. Because someone had breached jump space without clearance. A single ship. No signature. No beacon. No registry. Just a hunk of mismatched metal, bristling with heat flares and silent weapons. It didn't hail. It didn't respond. It just drifted, slowly, toward the Scornblade's forward gate, glowing faintly from friction it shouldn't be surviving. Identify that vessel, barked Halleck, fist slamming the console. Sir, muttered a technician. It's got no markings. Nothing in the galactic index. But, the hull reads English. English? Halleck growled. The screen zoomed in on the words, etched like a thread across the prow. Do not open unless you're ready to die. Lyra's countdown. In Cell 9 the girl felt the shift. Not visually. Not with ears. But with the air. Something outside the walls changed. She gasped, and her chains swayed. As if pulled by a force that hadn't arrived yet. She looked up, eyes wide with instinctual hope. A whisper in her mind. I heard you. The gate. The freighter's defense crew scrambled. Gun batteries swiveled. Shield arrays screamed as they overloaded from the unknown ship's proximity. They had one gate between them and that death hull. Halleck gave the order. Fire everything. But the ship didn't flinch. Instead, it moved. A single pulse burst from its side, not a missile, not a beam, just an electromagnetic scream. It shut down the freighter. Every light died. Every weapon sagged. Every door unlocked. Even the chains. Lyra fell to the ground with a sob, half-conscious, bleeding, whispering one word she didn't understand. Human. The 40 seconds. The guards rushed to the lower levels. But there wasn't time. The gate at the docking bay exploded inward, not from charge but from raw, furious kinetic force. The kind that made physics blink. A figure walked through the fire. Tall. Armored. Weaponless. Rourke. The first guard raised his rifle, and then there was no rifle. Just parts. Then no guard. Rourke moved like a storm. Not fast, not slow, just inevitable. In the observation deck, Halleck screamed for reinforcements. None came. He watched the screen. Camera feeds died one by one. Then he saw him. The human. Staring straight into the last working lens. You chained a child, Rourke said. That was your first mistake. Letting her cry? His voice dropped to a growl. That was your last. Smoke and ruin hung in the corridor like curtains of ash. The corridor lights flickered red, flickered again, then died. The only light now was the pulsing orange glow behind the figure moving through the breach. Rourke stepped through the fractured bulkhead of the scorn blade as if it weren't armor-hardened titanium, dragging half of the twisted door behind him like a toy. He didn't look at the corpses. He didn't need to. He was focused, deadly focused, on one presence. The child who had cried. And the monsters who had made her cry. Deck Theta, 5 levels below. Lyra's vision pulsed. Her small hands trembled as she tried to stand, the chains clattering off her wrists like dead snakes. Her fingers were too bruised to close fully. Her knees wobbled. But something inside her wouldn't let her fall. A whisper. A promise. He was coming. The steel door to cell block Theta 9 groaned. Not opened. Just melted. Heat warped the hinges. The edges ran like liquid before the door exploded inward. Lyra screamed, and then saw him. Not a demon. Not a Drek slaver. Not one of the monsters who haunted her nightmares. Him. The man who had answered her. His helmet hissed and folded back. She saw eyes, not cruel, not cold. But furious. Not at her. For her. He didn't speak first. Rourke stared at the little Vari girl. She was no older than 6 by human reckoning. He could see every mark on her. Every cut. Every bruise. Every reason he was going to do what he had come to do. But she beat him to it. She whispered something. The translator implanted behind Rourke's ear blinked green as it captured the telepathic murmur. I knew you were real. Now they knew. Back on the command deck, Halleck was screaming into comms. Where is he now? A terrified officer stammered, Deck Theta, sir. He's with the girl. We've got visuals, but he's looking at the camera, sir. Halleck turned. The feed showed Rourke standing still in the ruined corridor, the child behind him, clutching the back of his leg. Rourke raised one hand. 2 fingers. Tick. Tock. Then the camera died. No flash. No blast. Just blinked out. Terrors in steel. The Drek weren't weaklings. They were bred in sulfur storms and trained in zero-G brutality. 8 feet tall. Forearms. Weaponized claws and infrared vision. Rourke didn't care. They came at him in packs, like wolves. He moved through them like death incarnate. Snap. One neck shattered like chalk. Crack. Another thrown into the ceiling so hard it never came down. Boom. A sonic gauntlet exploded in his hand, redirected into a wall of flame. The child never saw blood. He kept his body between her and everything. He fought like a storm, but he protected like a father. The broadcast. The Scornblade's emergency distress beacon had gone out with the rest of the systems, but Rourke had turned it back on. Only now it didn't scream for help. It broadcasted video. Everything. From his breach to the slaughter in the corridors. His voice, when it came, was broadcast across 6 nearby systems. This ship held a child in chains. This ship belongs to your empire. So I'm letting you watch. Planets. Stations. Fleets. Billions of eyes locked onto the horror unfolding aboard Scornblade. For the first time in centuries, the galaxy saw a human and no one dared ask, is he alone? Because if he was, God help them. The vault. He found it 6 minutes later. Past fire, past fallen bulkheads, through the spinal corridor of the ship. The main vault was thick with automated turrets and an internal plasma firewall. None of it mattered. Rourke ripped the floor open beneath it and dropped in from above. The guards didn't even have time to scream. He didn't use guns. He didn't need them. He was the gun. The vault wasn't full of treasure. It was full of cages. Vari children. Maybe 30. Maybe 40. All staring. All silent. Until they felt her. Lyra. And then the air changed. The Vari don't have war cries. But when they sang, that strange harmonic psychic wave, it shook steel. The sound rippled outward. And someone answered. Elsewhere in the void. The human ship Black Ember was drifting near the fringe system known as Red Stitch. Its crew, 3 ex-Marines and a former AI weapons technician, were eating breakfast. Then the comms screeched. Not noise. A sound. A Vari song. And in its folds, a human voice. This is Rourke. I got 40 kids. Get me an exit window. They didn't hesitate. They didn't ask if it was a trap. They just moved. Because if Rourke had answered a child's cry, it meant one thing. There was something worth burning the galaxy for. The bridge, final stand. Halleck waited on the bridge with a full platoon. Heavy weapons. Reinforced drones. Psionic suppression fields. He knew Rourke was coming. He thought maybe, with the child hostages with proper defense he could slow the man down. But Rourke wasn't slower. He was angrier. The vault kids were safely sealed in an escape pod now, drifting toward the waiting Black Ember. And he only had one thing left to do. Rourke stepped onto the bridge. Halleck's weapons fired. Missiles. Beams. Sonic ruptures. Nothing worked. One by one every soldier fell. Not from screams. From silence. Rourke walked through the smoke, eyes locked on Halleck. "You listened to her cry," he said. "You let her hang there." He stepped forward, every syllable a death toll. "Now it's your turn." No chains left. When it was over, Rourke stood on the bridge alone. Not even the flames dared approach him. He activated the last escape sequence. Then he walked to the docking bay where a new boarding ship hovered. The Black Ember had come. The door hissed open. Inside were humans. And every single one of them knelt as the Vari children were carried in. One by one the kids turned their heads, not toward the soldiers but toward Rourke. Toward the one who came when no one else did. And the galaxy watched. Every world. Every outpost. Every empire that had once mocked humanity as backward, primitive, dangerous but disorganized, now watched that final transmission. Rourke standing in silence. The girl in his arms. The children safe behind him. And on every screen his final words. "You chained a child. You invited a Deathworlder. Now remember what that means." The broadcast cut. But the fear didn't. And it never would. The Black Ember cut low across the fringe of Syndicate space, its engines humming at minimum signature. Inside, the 42 Vari children huddled together under thermal blankets, silent, watchful. The air aboard the Ember was calm. But every corridor still trembled. Not from the ship. From him. Rourke stood by the viewing bay alone, arms crossed, the stars reflected in his bruised armor. Lyra slept in a fold-out chair beside him, curled into a blanket that looked 5 sizes too big. He hadn't moved in 27 minutes. "They'll chase us," someone said behind him. Rourke didn't turn. He just whispered, "Let them." The ones who were watching. Across the fractured regimes of the outer wards, dozens of factions had seen the footage. The Drex Syndicate Council screamed for retaliation. The Valari Church of Silence condemned the human war demon. The Krez Dominion went strangely quiet. But the ones who truly understood were the ones who had lived long enough to know what a Deathworlder was. The archivists of Hask read the signals. The precursors in exile took note. And the Scourge Kings of Brax, long thought extinct, awoke from cryo-slumber with a single whisper across their hive minds. It has begun again. Back in human space, the question. The Galactic Council of Species met in emergency session. Not because they cared about the Vari. Not really. Because of him. Because if that footage wasn't faked, and there was no sign it was, then one human had boarded a dreadnought, torn through its military and escaped with hostages. And he had not done it for pay. He had not done it for glory. He had done it because a child cried. One elder race's representative, an ancient Ilyari, finally asked aloud what others feared. What kind of species risks annihilation, for one small voice? No one answered. They all already knew. The Ember's hidden depths. Back on the ship, Rourke finally moved. He opened a maintenance hatch, punched in a retinal code, and stepped into a deep maintenance bay that wasn't on the blueprints. Inside were crates. Hundreds of them. Weapons, yes. But more than that, files. Photos. Logs. Histories. Rourke walked down the row until he found the newest box. He picked up a small data crystal labeled in sharp pen, Lyra Theta 9. Rescued. He placed it inside. And then sealed the crate. The Black Ember wasn't just a ship. It was a ledger. A record of every atrocity the galaxy forgot. And every child they would never again overlook. She woke up. Lyra's small voice echoed in the silence. "Why didn't you leave?" Rourke knelt beside her, slow. "You asked," he said. "That's not why," she whispered, eyes gleaming. He didn't answer right away. Finally he spoke. "Because when I was a boy nobody came." Lyra blinked. He placed a small silver coin in her hand. Old Terran design. Scarred. Faded. "Keep that safe," he said. "It reminds you." "Of what?" "That you're not forgotten." The first pursuit begins. The Drek fleet didn't waste time. 6 ships launched in pursuit of the Ember, declaring a bounty worth 50 million credits for Rourke. Alive. Not because they wanted to question him, but because they wanted to make an example. That was their mistake. Rourke didn't run. He sent them coordinates. A dead star system known as Lurian's Hollow. And when the Drek arrived, he was already waiting. The black ember had vanished. In its place was a minefield made of scrap, hull shards, debris, explosive-laced escape pods, and every piece broadcast one signal. She cried. The first Drek ship exploded before they understood the pattern. Humanity responds. Earth didn't declare war. It didn't need to. Veterans across dozens of colonies began to move. Independently. Quietly. Like blood cells reacting to an infection. They didn't wear uniforms. They didn't follow orders. They followed principles. In hidden corners of Mars, on asteroid prisons, even aboard luxury liners, humans whispered the phrase, "Did you hear what happened to the girl in chains?" And then they whispered the answer. A man tore down a fleet. And then quietly, "What do you need me to do?" The other Deathworlders. Humans were not the only Deathworlders in the galaxy. But they were the only ones who had chosen kindness as their first tool. And that made them the most dangerous. The Terran Polaris Accord, a rogue cell of former spies, reached out to the Vari resistance. The Draken Shield Corps, thought wiped out, sent a coded message. Even the silent cyber wraiths of Curus accepted a bounty. Not to kill Rourke. To defend him. Because when the galaxy remembered what humans could do when provoked, they started remembering what would happen if they ever stood together. One girl's voice becomes many. On a Vari colony once burned to ash, a little girl stood up and said, "I am not afraid anymore." On a merchant ship, a boy with shackles still scarred into his skin whispered, "Someone is watching now." On a station where humans had been forbidden for a generation, children of every race drew the same picture in school. A girl in chains. A man at the door. A gate torn open. The image spread like a virus. And the Deathworlder's message became a whisper among the stars. We don't run. We return. Final moments before the next storm. In the deepest dark, Rourke stared at the stars again. Lyra stood beside him now, smaller still than the shadows behind them, but brighter than he'd ever seen. "You're going back, aren't you?" she asked. He didn't lie. "Yes." "Why?" He turned his head slightly. And in a voice as steady as a blade drawn in silence, he said, "Because they haven't heard the last of me. Because there are more children. Because someone has to be the one who knocks." He said, "Because someone has to be the one who knocks." And so he did. Not with diplomacy. Not with a message of peace. But with the scream of metal, the thunder of impact, and the promise of reckoning forged into the hull of a ship that no one had ever built. Because it shouldn't have been possible. But impossible was a word Deathworlders only heard when they were about to break something. The gauntlet was thrown. Across 7 star systems, the Drek scrambled. Not to retaliate, they tried that. Now they moved to protect. Their leadership bunkers. Their war vaults. Their secret facilities. They didn't say it aloud, but every Drek admiral understood something terrifying. The Deathworlder was coming again. The black ember was gone. Scattered through the dead zones. A dozen sensor ghosts in 1,000 directions. But he was still out there. And he hadn't taken anything from them yet. He had only taken back what was never theirs to keep. The Council divides. The Galactic Council held another emergency session. Half wanted to declare humanity a rogue civilization. The other half wanted to hire them. Only one delegate, a withered Chirrux elder with artificial lungs, said what no one dared. "It is not the humans we should fear. It is the day they stop rescuing." Silence followed. Because everyone felt it. The slow, tectonic shifting of galactic conscience. Not just fear. Not just awe. But guilt. The realization that a single human had done more for the Vari than 100 systems of benevolent powers ever had. The return. On a fractured moon orbiting the Drek capital world, a classified prison facility known as Iron Halo went dark. No distress call. No survivors. Just a wide, gouged-out trench in the ground. At its heart, scorched plating from a human exosuit and a single message burned into the wall. "I found the others." 12 Vari were missing from the records. And a camera feed recovered from a broken drone caught one image before the static hit. A girl holding a soldier's hand. And a man, Rourke, staring into the lens with a promise in his eyes. The sparks catch flame. Rebellions flared. Not because Rourke commanded them. He never said a word. But because his actions proved something. To the enslaved? Hope. To the complicit? Judgment. And to the monsters who profited from silence? A deadline. From asteroid mining camps to orphan factories orbiting black holes, Beings of all species rose up whispering the same phrase. If the Deathworlder is coming, then I will stand free or die on my feet. One act of impossible violence became a symphony of revolution. The last broadcast. From a hidden transmitter deep inside Syndicate territory, an unauthorized signal hijacked 42 comm satellites. It played once. A simple message. No threats. No demands. No official logo. Just a child's voice, Lyra's, saying, "Thank you. He heard me." And he came. Then silence. But across the galaxy, that voice echoed louder than any fleet ever could. Some called it propaganda. Others called it a miracle. But those who had seen him, they knew better. It was a warning. And still, he didn't stop. Rourke didn't go home. He didn't go dark. He kept going. Every week, another Drek site went offline. Another camp emptied. Another data file extracted, logged, archived aboard the Ember. The galaxy whispered legends now. He's not after power. He's after the truth. And behind every rescue he left the same coin. A battered silver disc, always placed somewhere it would be found. And carved into the back. You are not forgotten. Final reckoning. When the Drek Empire collapsed, it wasn't at the hands of a military coalition. It wasn't even during a battle. It was the result of dozens of small breaches over months. One prison at a time, one child at a time, until the system simply could not hold itself together. Because fear had been their weapon. And Rourke taught the galaxy how to fight it. The memory lives. Lyra now walks free on a green world under a blue sky. She plants trees, reads books, learns languages. She tells stories of the stars. But every now and then she gets a message, no name, no signature, just a file. A list of rescued names. A datapad filled with evidence. And once a year, a package with a single battered coin. Because he never stopped listening. And he never stopped knocking. Final words. We thought monsters ruled the stars. We were wrong. The worst thing you could do in this galaxy wasn't conquer a planet, or enslave a species, or build a superweapon. The worst thing you could do was make a little girl cry. Within earshot of a Deathworlder. Stop sign, end of story. If this story gripped you. If your blood ran colder when Rourke said he wasn't done. If you felt the shift, the weight, the power of one human who refused to let the galaxy forget. Then join us. Subscribe to the Void Narratives and never miss a tale where humanity's fury and compassion rewrite the stars.